it's Kristen. Welcome back for another DIY video. In today's video, we're sharing with you how we made these Adirondack chairs for our fire pit. We're really happy with the way that the chairs turned out. They were really easy to make, they're comfortable and inexpensive.
We did make one adjustment. The plans recommend using a miter saw to get the angled cuts in the chair. However, we don't own a miter saw, so I'm going to show you how to build these chairs using inexpensive tools you already have.
As always, down in the description box below, we'll have everything linked for you. We'll have a link to the website with the plans, as well as the links for all of the tools and supplies and things that we used. And if you'd like to see more pictures of the finished product and just more details, you can check that out on our website at raisingnobles.com.
All right, so let's get started. Here's everything you're gonna need to build the modern Adirondack chair. First, of course, you're gonna need a circular saw, tape measure, pencil. We're going to be using a speed square, drill, of course. You're going to want some ear protection, eye protection. I'm going to be using a Kreg jig to attach a few of the pieces. There's probably a way to do it without this, but I highly recommend it. I use this tool in almost every project that I do. Paired with that, you'll need a clamp, which typically comes with the Kreg jig. I chose to use non-treated lumber, just regular lumber, in part because it looks better. In part because at our local hardware store, they do not sell 1x10s in treated hardware. That's very difficult to find. So this way it's all gonna match, and then we're just gonna coat it with the stain and sealer so it's protected against the elements. You're also gonna need just a few pocket hole screws, some 1.5 to 2 inch exterior screws. I'm using self-tapping deck screws. They're just a lot easier to work with. 2.5 inch. You could probably do it without a sanding block and orbital sander, but I'm going to use these because I think it's going to give it a much more finished look. Finally, you're going to need a nice level place to assemble these. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper shop set up in my garage yet, so I'm using this old tabletop just to make sure I have something secure, stable, where I can make sure everything's nice and level once it's time to assemble. All right, so in the original plans, it recommends using a miter saw, which is certainly an easier way to get an angled cut. However, if you don't have a miter saw, what I'm going to do is show you how to do this with just a circular saw. So you're going to use your speed square to get the angled cut you're going to need for those stringers that are going to support your chair. Now what you're going to do is rotate your speed square at that pivot point until the edge of the board lines up right here with this 20. What that means is you're now making a 20-degree angle cut, 20 degrees off square. You're going to go ahead and draw your line along with the edge of the speed square there. And then you're just going to cut right along that line. And you're going to see I already made a cut. It's going to make it at that 20-degree angle, so it lines up exactly the position that you need for your stringers. So we're going to go ahead and begin by making those more difficult cuts at that 20-degree angle. Here you're going to see I'm going ahead and lining up the speed square like I demonstrated at that 20-degree mark and then just drawing the line. Now when you make this cut, you want to be very careful. It needs to be pretty precise at that 20-degree angle so that it lines up properly. I would recommend making several practice cuts with this before you do it on the real thing. If you have some scrap pieces or something, the way the blade lines up is a little bit tricky, so you want to make sure you know exactly how to do it. Now these stringers from long end to short end need to be 33.25. So you're going to want to go ahead and measure that out and then draw your line with your speed square at one end, and then very carefully again make that cut as close to that perfect 20-degree angle as you can. Next up, we're going to make an additional cut at one end of those stringers you just cut at the 20-degree angle. Here I'm measuring 2.5 inches from the shorter end of the stringer and making a mark. Now you're going to turn your speed square so you can get a 90-degree angle from the 20-degree that you previously cut. Go ahead and draw your line, and then you're going to, of course, make a cut along that line. What this is going to do is allow for a nice flat surface for the stringer to sit on at the base of your chair. Next, we're going to make quite a few very simple 90-degree cuts for the legs, arms, and back supports. You can get all the exact measurements you need on the Anna White website. Just make sure as you're making these cuts, you do it in a very consistent way. You don't want to lead the edge differently in each one, especially for those legs. They need to be a consistent length so that your chair doesn't have any wobble or anything like that. Next, we're going to go and cut our 1x10s for the seat and the back. Especially for the back pieces, make sure they're exactly that 19.5 inches. If they're even just a little bit too big, they're not going to slide between the armrests like they need to, so you need to be very precise in those measurements and cuts. Next, we're going to go ahead and drill pocket holes on 2 of the 19.5 inch pieces you cut just a moment ago. You're going to do 2 pocket holes on each end. Of course, I'm using my Kreg jig here to do that. 2x4 is 1.5 inches thick, so you're going to want to set the drill bit and the Kreg jig to the 1.5 inch setting so you get that perfect depth. Okay, it's time to assemble your chair. So the first step is you're going to attach the arm piece to one of the legs as you see here. I'm using my 2.5 inch self-tapping screws to do that. You're going to want to be very careful. Because you're drilling pretty close to the end, it is pretty easy to split the wood. So go ahead and just be careful as you ease those screws in there. To be safe, it may be wise to go ahead and pre-drill your holes just to ensure that you don't split the wood. Next up, you're going to go ahead and add the stringer. You're going to measure 13 3/4 inches up from the bottom of the leg. Make a measurement and then attach your stringer using 2.5 inch screws. This is where it's really important to have a nice level surface so you can make sure that your arm, leg, and stringer are all sitting flush. Now, each of these legs should be a mirror image of one another. So virtually identical, but a mirror image. Next, we're going to use one of those pieces that you drilled the pocket holes into earlier. What you're going to do is turn your legs over upside down, use your clamp to attach the 19.5 inch piece to the armrest, and use 2.5 inch exterior Kreg screws. Now, this is the only error I've seen in Anna White's plan so far. The plans say that you're going to need 4 pocket hole screws, when in reality you will need 8 because of this piece here. Turn your chair on its side and attach those 2.5 inch screws to where the face of the support piece lines up with the very end of your stringer and the top lines up with the top of your stringer. Make sure it doesn't go any higher because you don't want it to get in the way of the seat pieces that we're going to install next. Once you're done with this, go ahead and set it on that nice level surface. Make sure everything looks good, it's not wobbly or uneven in any way. Next, we're going to install the seat pieces. You're going to switch now to your 1.5 or 2 inch deck screws. Go ahead and bring that seat piece all the way up to the front and install 1 screw on each side, making sure it's level. Now you're going to notice my drill isn't going to fit underneath the arm, and that's okay. It's actually good to go ahead and drill those in at a slight bit of an angle because it will improve the structural integrity. So I'm doing 3 screws on each side for each seat piece. Now when you install the second piece, make sure you leave a little space between them for water drainage. I would recommend maybe 1/4 inch or so, and we'll finish attaching the seat. Okay, we're nearing the end. Now, next up, you're going to need that extra 19.5 inch piece from earlier. Place it underneath the arm of the chair to make sure it's not sagging. It's nice and level. You're going to use your back support now. Attach it with 2.5 inch screws. I'm just kind of pre-drilling it a little bit here to make it easier once it's ready. Lift it up to where it's flush with the bottom of the stringer. Now you're going to notice I'm going to use my left hand here to pull it tight and make sure it's going in at the angle that I want. Next, we're going to turn the chair around and add 2 more screws to just add to the structural integrity. I'm using the 19.5 inch piece here to make sure it's not sagging, but it's level. So we'll do 2 screws here and you'll be ready for the next back support. All right, so it's time to go ahead and make use of that extra 19.5-inch piece. We're going to place it at the bottom at the very base of the back supports. Now we're going to use 2 of those 2.5-inch screws on either side to add to a little bit of structural support here. We're going to do this from the back, but also add in 2 additional screws from each side. Okay, the very last part of assembly is here. You're going to go ahead and choose whichever side of these boards here that you like the look of better. And you're going to go back to those 1.5 or 2-inch screws. I like to pre-drill these just a little bit to make the assembly process a little bit easier. By the end, you're going to go ahead and put 2 on each side of each board. So a total of 4 screws on each board. Next, go ahead and pull the back piece so it's level with the top of the back supports. Make sure it's nice and straight on the top and the sides, and then go ahead and attach the screws on either end. Now, as you move down to the second board, you're going to want to leave maybe about a 1/4 inch or so gap, maybe even a little bit more between the boards for drainage. For the third board, you're going to want to make sure you leave enough room for some space at the bottom. Again, you want to have enough room for drainage, so any water that's coming off of that seat, it should have a bit of a gap to go ahead and drain through. Lastly, put a screw at the bottom of each of your back pieces to complete the assembly process. Once you've assembled your chair, I think it's helpful to go over the edges with an orbital sander. This is going to help remove any rough areas or splinters. I also like to go over the edges of the cut pieces and just round them out a little bit. This will make it a little bit more comfortable as you're moving the chair. I think it also gives it a much more finished look. Your 2x4s are going to naturally have a rounded edge, but your 1xs likely will not. So this kind of helps them all match each other a little bit better and can even hide some imperfections in the assembly process as well. Now, because we're using untreated wood, and this of course is going to be outside, it's very important that you seal this product to protect it from the elements. We ended up using a product by Valspar, which is a 1-coat exterior stain and sealer. We used it in the semi-transparent version, and we ended up going with a color called rusticana. Now we're just going to go ahead and apply this as evenly as possible. This process can take a little while, but you're going to want to make sure you get good coverage because this is going to give your chair a really great look and also protect it for a long time. We hope you enjoyed the video. We're really happy with the way these chairs turned out. They look great and they're surprisingly comfortable.
Thank you so much for watching this video today. Again, all the links and things that you might need are going to be down below in the description. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more videos, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Again, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in our next video. Bye.